Good afternoon. It's my pleasure to be here today to represent the City of Chicago to describe some of our water conservation initiatives that the City of Chicago has been implementing under the leadership of Mayor Daley. Just want to give you a brief overview of our water system. We serve over 5.4 million people in the City of Chicago. City of Chicago is 2.9 million people that we supply. We have 125 suburban communities and representing 2.5 million people. This is my favorite slide because it shows the results of our efforts in water conservation. As you can see here, the city has made great strides in reducing water waste and by setting water management goals that promote water conservation and protection of our water supply. And because of these efforts, we've benefited in many ways, such as deferring capital costs associated with water supply, energy savings by reduction in pumpage, and reduced water wastage. We also have prevented millions of gallons of water from leaving the Great Lakes watershed. From 1990 to 2006, the City of Chicago has declined in water usage more than 30%. So it's astounding figures. And we started off back in 1980 at 780 million gallons per day, and now we're down this past year, 2006, of 545 million. That represents 235 million gallons per day of savings. And we place a high value on protecting our most valued resource, Lake Michigan, and continue to act responsibly in managing it wisely. Just a little background on on the diversion, on the water conservation program. Back in the mid to late 80s, the state of Illinois was exceeding its allocation diversion limits from the Supreme Court decree of 1967. And as they developed an overall strategy to bring those diversions back into compliance, and as part of that strategy, the City of Chicago adopted a 1989 water conservation plan to address aggressive conservation measures such as replacing water mains that have been leaking, increasing the number of miles supported on our leak detection program, as well as getting our hydrant custodian program on our open hydrant situation that we were plagued with. To lead even further, in January 1st of 2003, Department of Water and the Department of Sewers merged to become the new Department of Water Management. And in 2003, Mayor Daley introduced the Chicago Water Agenda, again, to lead the city further in protecting our great resource and promoting water conservation measures, as well as stormwater management. The Water Agenda defines our commitment to managing stormwater by managing stormwater by water quality, improving water quality, doing our best to promote water conservation, and getting that message out to the public. Some of the primary water conservation initiatives I want to bring to you today include the water main replacement program, our hydrant custodian installation, education and public awareness, and underground leak detection and repair, as well as stormwater management. Our water main replacement program we feel is our largest source of unaccounted for loss in dealing with this. If you think about it, we have 4,200 miles of water main in our system. And just to put that in another perspective, if you calculate the volume of that capacity, it's over 500 billion gallons that are underneath our streets each day. And this is an aging water system. And so, to focus on this is a real key issue. And our goal was to replace 42 miles of water main each year, and we are doing that. We are the caretakers of an aging system, and we are managing it wisely. This chart kind of shows a little bit about the infrastructure in Chicago. Chicago between 1880 and 1920 was exponentially growing. And as part of that exponential growth, the infrastructure was also expanding. And so as you can see in the slide here, we have a lot of water mains that are in that bracket between 1880 and 1920 that are going to be reaching their useful life. And we are addressing this issue by accelerating the main replacement program. And I think a lot of cities throughout the nation are going through these same type of issues, you know, that the infrastructure, the cost of it is going to be phenomenal in the years to come. And I appreciate the Great Lakes Cities Initiative. I saw resolution number 9 there that we're looking for funding for bringing this issue in place, because a lot of cities will be dealing with this. One of the conservation measures that we've implemented back in 1989, we had a lot of problems with open hydrants, and we actually developed a custodian device, as you see there focused in the picture, that actually combats the theft of water out of these hydrants. During hot summer days, kids would open these things up, and no matter what we did to try to turn it off, the next time we turn around, they're open again. So this problem that you see here is something from the past. We have dealt with it, and it is actually, now and then there are some open, but we get very few calls anymore of this type of situation. So we feel this has a very big impact on the past of what we've done. Mayor Daley has taken the lead through various city departments in getting the word out. If you live in Chicago, you've seen these ads. Conserve water, protect our resource, and keep it clean. Throughout our school systems, public meetings, literature distribution, and extensive use of the internet, conservation messages are conveyed. Our transportation system has been a great way to bring the message to the public. It's through these continued efforts that we are able to foster water conservation habits that will have an impact on generations to come. The city of Chicago is leading through example by changes in our building codes, as building code ordinances, and applying innovative technologies such as the waterless urinals at the City Hall, which save 40,000 gallons per year per urinal. We have installed shutoff valves in all of our parks where water fountains used to run continuously. A major component of our water conservation plan includes leak detection, and these are just some of the devices that we use in looking for these leaks. The technologies have varied over the years, but we are using the latest and greatest technology out there to sound these water mains that are leaking and repair the leak before it gets worse and surfaces and causes public disruption. So it's a very good conservation measure. The department has also supplemented its efforts by contracting out water leak detection program as a consultant that actually is bringing some of these newer technologies to our water system and using them. Leaks on feeder mains, large feeder mains, have always been difficult to detect, and because of their large size, and they just don't have the ability to transmit sound. Here's some pictures of concrete pipe which failed catastrophically, and as you can see, the damage caused by the extreme force of the water escaping the pipeline. The technology that's out there now to detect small leaks is just in its infancy. Water mains, large water mains, are just inherently hard to detect. So we have actually brought in a company to do some new technology that's out there, where we're able to go inside of a water main and actually traverse it and actually find where these leaks are on these large water mains. So we've employed this for the last 2 years in our system, and we've been very successful in locating several leaks before they become catastrophic. This is our cleaning and lining program also, which is a rehabilitation technology. We go inside the water main, pick it out, clean it, and look inside for the joints to see if they are any signs of leaking and repair those leaks, and then mortar line that iron pipe to prevent it from corroding further. So this actually saves 25% of the it's actually 25% of the cost of replacement. So it's one of our best rehabilitation technologies that we're using. Using stormwater as a resource makes sense. Applying the best management practices, using green infrastructure and urban site design, we're able to conserve and protect our resource. That makes economic sense since we don't have to pay to pump it and to treat it. Conservation measure, this is a great conservation since it keeps the water in the Great Lakes Basin. Chicago is creating a green infrastructure, and by utilizing open spaces to hold water that normally would drain directly into the sewer system, we also are encouraging developers to incorporate green design and infrastructure into their site plans. Green technology and best management practices is it's necessary for Chicagoans to understand the importance of our waterways and the issues that will face these resources. The City of Chicago has developed a guide, Stormwater Management, which gives residents and developers the tools necessary to better manage our water in a way that will assure protection of our water supply for generations to come. We've implemented green roofs. Here you can see our City Hall actually has a green roof system. We have the Chicago Center for Green Technology that we've built a green roof on. And this all helps in, of course, diverting the runoff, and also helps in protecting our water supply. We've also implemented permeable paving systems in our city, and these have been very successful to capture rainwater and infiltrate into the soil system rather than going into the sewer system and out into the river system, so it stays inside the watershed. This is a prime example of innovative technology here using the McCormick Place expansion with 67 acres of rooftop drainage that would normally have gone into our sewer system, but we've actually constructed a 3,400-foot tunnel 160 feet deep into Lake Michigan, so the stormwater is actually being returned to the basin. It just made good sense. Why build your sewers and why surcharge them and why let it go all down to the sewer? And here's just a aerial of that tunnel system. And of course, we are involved with the rain barrel program. The City of Chicago has encouraged residents to participate in using rain barrels for their outdoor watering needs. And through various ag campaigns like why take it from the lake when you can take it from the sky, the city has been very successful in getting the message out to the public. And that's been key to our conservation efforts, is getting the public involved and getting them notified. So with it, this is the last slide. We are implementing several ordinances, landscape ordinance, a stormwater ordinance, which takes effect January 1st, 2008. And we're using ordinances to also to foster green urban design. So with that, I thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, now we're going to move to the question and answer portion of the panel session today. I'll remind everyone you have these cards on your table. Please fill them out and pass them to the folks around the room in the brown shirts. They'll compile them and bring them on up here, and we'll deal with your questions. I have received one over the break, and it deals with water consumption standards. The question is, and this is as a water resources engineer and a guy who designs water systems, I've always had standards to deal with to size the pipes to convey what we think is the flow that's going to be demanded. This question, though, deals with, have any standards or recommendations or guidelines been developed regarding recommended per capita water use?
Okay. I'll start with that. Typically, as you indicated, Devin, the engineers will go with the design standards that are issued by the province. In our case, in Ontario, the Provincial Ministry of the Environment will issue design standards. But one of the things we did look at in our water efficiency plan was the changing nature of per capita consumption in relation to changes within the infrastructure, i.e. the home itself. It has low-flow toilets, more water-efficient appliances. It should use less water than design standards. In addition, we looked at the changing nature of our city, going away more from the single-family home to the multi-residential type situation. They're much more a water-efficient user. So we did change some of the per capita demand numbers within our efficiency plan, and we've been using a lower per capita number to try to design future expansions in our plant. Now we have to get permission for some of these variations from the Ministry of the Environment because they're the regulator, but it's something that we've been doing as a city as well to try to reflect the change, in fact, in what's happening in the city as opposed to stagnant guidelines. Somebody else wants to.
Okay, this is a question, and I believe we need to hear from all of you on this one, so be prepared. I think you'll be able to answer it. What is the rate structure that's utilized in your communities? And this is obviously using the rate structure to encourage conservation.
Okay.
Additional comments?
You want me to go first again? Well, we just completed an 18-month review of the rate structure within the City of Toronto. We used to have a 7-block rate structure that was essentially an inverted U shape. That if you were in the middle of the usage band, you paid the highest unit rate. If you were at the low end or at the high end, you paid a lower unit rate. Council just recently approved going to one single rate structure, but there are two exceptions. One exception for seniors and low-income households. They have to meet a certain test and threshold. They will get a reduction of about 20% in the first year and changing to 30% over time. And then we have another one for manufacturing water process users. As Mayor Miller indicated, we met with our local industries. We have a large food processing sector within the city. They would be eligible also for a 20% reduction off of that flat rate, going to 30% the next year. But they must file a water efficiency plan with us. It has to be approved by our department and audited. And they have to show that there's savings within their facilities to be eligible for that. If they don't maintain that, they will lose that rate reduction. So we are using our rate to give the incentive for conservation with those large industries.
The City of Thunder Bay, like the City of Toronto, was just also completed an 18-month study of the current water rate structure. We have a declining block which does not support conservation. And we've got 2 or 3 models which are now in the pilot testing phase. That phase is simply, what were you paying today based upon the current model? What will you be paying in the future under the new model? So it is being tested now, and we expect to bring it forward to City Council in the fall of 2007.
In Chicago, we have one flat rate for all of our customers. We are right now involved with reviewing our water rate structure and looking at ways that we can use to put the best value for the water. So I can't really comment on what those are right now, but I know we are looking into reviewing that, but we do have one flat rate for all of our customers.
This next question deals with energy management in utilities. Do your communities measure the life cycle energy utilized to treat, pump, and convey water and wastewater through your systems, and would this information be of value?
In Toronto, yes, we do. We, as Mayor Miller indicated, when you pump water, you use a lot of electricity. That is, in fact, the largest, on our water side, the largest expense we have. We spend about $42 million Canadian a year just pumping water. Add on the wastewater side, we spend probably about another $13 to $14 million to treat on the wastewater side, and that's usually in the aeration basins. So we have an aggressive program where we're changing out old inefficient motors. We're putting in place sub-metering so we have a better understanding of our large pumps and when they use water. And right now, in fact, we have a request for proposal out on the street to build a computer algorithm model that will help us with our pumping strategies. So we will be able to move water to the reservoirs when we need them at the right time and tie that into rate structure, electricity rate structures. So we're using that kind of data to help us better manage our energy usage.
The City of Thunder Bay also does take into account life cycle costing for energy management. That includes our pumping stations, reservoirs, sewage treatment plants, and some of our larger facilities. Even in the designs for our new facilities, we have a $46 million new water treatment plant, which was commissioned about 2.5 weeks ago. We took into account over the life cycle of that plant what the energy demand is. Same thing at the sewage treatment plant. We have a $61 million sewage treatment plant that was commissioned probably less than a year ago, and the life cycle costing for energy was included in that. What that allowed us to do is pick the most efficient type of appliances that were required to move the products to where they needed to go. On top of that, we've actually even run some contests in the city. We had one that was very successful. It's called What a Bright Idea, and it engaged the general population of our corporation to send in ideas about what we could all be doing internally to save power. It was very popular. People got some decent prizes, and it helped us manage the older technology that existed at that time.
I'll pass on this question.
We're going to change the topic a little bit. You guys ready for that? Mm-hmm. Okay, great. What is the current status of regulating oversight of effluent generated by confined animal feeding operations, otherwise known as factory farms?
I'll pass on that. We don't have any farms in the City of Toronto.
I'll pass on that also.
Likewise.
Oh boy, no takers.
We don't have any operations within our jurisdiction.
All right. Well, this one gets to, one of these very logistical questions. What happens to all the old toilets and shower heads? Are they recycled, and what's the cost for disposal?
Okay. I'll start with ours. In most cases, the toilets that get changed out do end up in landfill. However, the city has completed pilot studies showing that you can crush the toilets and use them as in base aggregate for roadworks. So we did that, and you can get up to about 14 to 15% in the mixture, and it still meets the requirements that the engineer set out for road base. So we do have that provision included in all of our tenders in the city to try to encourage companies to use crushed toilets in the aggregate.
Part of the water conservation program in Thunder Bay, when we do our rebate program for toilets, it's mandatory that the plumbers that change the toilets out take them to the landfill. They're crushed at the landfill and utilized as road-based material at the landfill site. So it's all part of our conservation program.
We don't have any rebates or anything like that, so can't really comment on this.
The next question deals with rates and reduced income. With conservation, less water, less income. How do you adjust your rates to reflect the less income that you're going to be getting?
Okay, short answer is you raise rates. In Toronto, we've done that in the last 2 years. There have been 2 successive 9% rate increases. Now, most of that rate increase is going towards our capital program, the infrastructure renewal, as well as making the investment in in water efficiency. As I indicated earlier, we think it's wiser to make the investment today, and that investment includes the hard capital as well as the reduction in revenue. You have to plan for that by raising the rate. If you make that investment now, the payback will be there decades later in reduced infrastructure costs. So you have to look at it from the larger life cycle cost as opposed to what do I get today. I know it's a hard sell, but if you get that message out, it is the right thing to do.
City of Thunder Bay also uses a similar technique. We are producing cash flows for the water and sewage and the other utilities. We align all of the operating expenditures in and the loss of revenue, which is a calculation that we put in each cash flow for every year in terms of conservation and loss of revenue. And the cash flow is designed so that the new rate that will be passed on in a percentage to the user or to our customer is subject to approval by City Council. I believe the last 2 years our rate increases, which had the revenue losses rolled up into them, were 5% and 7% respectively.
In Chicago, again, I feel like we need to we are looking at our rate structure and reviewing, what is the real value of water, and we still have to promote water conservation. I know it's less revenue. You ask people to stop using water, conserve water. It's going to impact financially, but I think it still needs to be a message that's out there, and just educate the public is probably the right way to do this, is to what is the real value of water.
I couldn't have paid you for a better segue to this next question, because it's regarding the rates and the communication strategies that tie costs to delivery and treatment. Are those working? In other words, is the public more receptive to cost increases when those costs are tied to services rather than the resource?
Short answer is yes, and that's what we try to do with our communications program, is we try to show our residents that the rate increases are going to something. And so we work hard on demonstrating that extra revenue that we're generating by the rate increase gets put into hard infrastructure or hard projects, and we clearly define them and have community awareness campaigns. We spend a significant amount of money in Toronto Water annually promoting all the various programs that we have, from dealing with wet weather to water efficiency to our renewal program. We want the public to know that their money is going into their assets, their infrastructure.
City of Thunder Bay, again, the short answer is yes. We have a number of publications that we produce at the time of budget approval, some of them specific to the water utility, some of them specific to sewage and taxes. We actually have trifold brochures that will get mailed to homes that basically state what is your money purchasing. In the areas where there's been a lot of activity, such as water and sewage treatment, it's basically indicating to our customers and users, where's the money going, how much debt do we have, how long does it take to pay off the debt, and back that up with the type of product they're getting, such as the quality of the water that goes to the tap and the discharge to the Lake Superior Basin.
In Chicago, the answer is yes also. We are always trying to reach out to the public to let them know exactly what the cost, the rates are, and why they're going up. And as I was saying earlier, we do have an aging water system, and people realize that they have to put money toward that infrastructure, and there's this cost associated with that. So.
This next question has been directed to Mike Sturdivant of Chicago. One water and sewer department sounds like a good idea. How did the city overcome the resistance to change long-standing governmental institutions?
It's been a hard marriage, I guess. There's just it did one thing I think was the biggest sell is that it allows looking at the resource as a whole and managing it as a whole, and I think that message was brought to everyone, and teaching water people to deal with sewer issues and sewer people to deal with water issues is probably the biggest struggle in management, I think.
The only thing I could add is in our city we amalgamated a number of municipalities in 1998, and in the water group we had to merge together 8 different operating entities at that time. And so now we have a fully integrated system where we have drinking water, wastewater, and storm all together, plants and linear. In the past, that wasn't that way. We had a two-tier structure. It's been a challenge. It's been now almost a decade, and we're still finishing up the last of our restructuring. So culture has been the most difficult thing to deal with, to get people to realize now we're one team. That is a hard thing to do, but management has to keep pushing that message out to the staff. It does slowly change, but it takes a concerted effort.
Okay, change of direction again. No dodging this one. I think it's an interesting question. In June, San Francisco Mayor Gavin Newsom signed an executive order banning the use of city funds to purchase single-serving plastic water bottles. The order also prohibits the sale of such water containers on city-owned property. This is an attempt by the city to boost the environmental awareness and encourage citizens to use tap water instead of bottled water and cut down on, obviously, plastic. Residents who sign an online pledge not to buy bottles can also get a stainless steel recyclable container from the city for free. How about opinions on this approach?
Last year, our council did entertain a similar motion, not as drastic or as severe, but they did pass a motion where in city functions within city buildings, tap water should be provided. Only in cases where you need to have bottled water. For example, we have cooling centers when it gets hot. We provide free water to residents. It makes sense in those situations for convenience to provide bottled water. But in all other meetings, it's tap water only. So council has already made some movement toward that, but not as far. They may consider that if they read that motion. We'll see.
In the city of Thunder Bay, it's similar to Toronto. About 2.5 years ago, City Council passed a resolution that banned bottled water or 5-gallon jugs of water in city facilities purchased using municipal funds. It has worked well. Most of those water dispensers have disappeared. They allowed an exception to occur for areas like landfill where you may have degraded water quality just because of the nature of the business, so you'll see some bottles there. And we're certainly seeing a decline in the number of bottles coming into the workplace as a result of employee purchase things. We also run a campaign called Quality Behind the Tap, which is a bit of a branding for the water utility that emphasizes the quality of water that is at the tap and that it meets or exceeds, from a positive parameter perspective, the regulations that exist in Ontario today.
I don't really have a lot of comment on this, but I know Chicago, we always encourage people to drink the tap water. We have no ordinance or anything against drinking bottled water. However, I know there has been some campaigns to actually take our water and bottle it and try to publicize it that way, especially the cost difference, is a big thing. And one thing is, we're regulated by the EPA in our drinking water systems, and FTA is regulating the bottled water industry, and there's a lot of issues I think that can be brought to the public's attention right there as to the stringent standards of the EPA versus FTA. So.
And we should add that it tastes good too.
Shamelessly,
we'll plug Toronto tap water. Most recently, we had the American Waterworks Association conference in Toronto. There was about 13,000 delegates from all over the world in the city, and they did a blind taste test, and Toronto Water ended up in third, which I thought was pretty good for that competition. So it tastes good as well.
Want to get some of that, if that's true. Next question deals with funding. The panel's talked so far about very expansive water conservation and efficiency programs. The question deals with, are these user-pay systems that you operate, and I assume the water conservation programs as well, or are they subsidized by property taxes?
In Toronto, it's fully funded from a user-pay system. We have about 450,000 accounts. Most of them are metered. We do have about 70,000 that are still on a flat rate structure, but we will be rolling meters out over the next few years to have everybody fully metered. We have no debt on our water side. All of our capital is done in-year funding, and we do have some reserves as well that we use. We use a reserve funding model. That we do not subsidize or take any subsidies from the property tax. And in fact, sometimes we over-contribute towards corporate overheads from our water towards the property tax. So we stand alone on our rate.
The City of Thunder Bay has a full user pay system for water as well as wastewater. All of the capital projects and the operation and maintenance for water, wastewater in Thunder Bay is funded from the utility. There's no tax dollars that go towards the operation, maintenance, or capital projects. And presently our sewer surcharge sits at 70%, so on top of your water bill, there's a 70% charge for sewage, which covers the cost of collection system and treatment at the plant.
In Chicago, we also have our water fund basically is funds all of our capital needs, and we have a 83% charge for our sewer wastewater collection system.
Question, how many years did it take to implement a city program? This was specifically to Chicago and Thunder Bay and Grand Rapids. So how many years did it take to implement a city program for water consumption reduction and reach a cruise speed in population appropriation? I'm reading the question verbatim here.
In Chicago, our program really started back in 1989. I mean, that's when we really started taking the bull by the horns and started funding this program. And as you can see from the chart that I had, the results were just significant. And so as you start funding these programs, you're actually saving money in the long run by reducing your energy consumption, reducing your pumping costs, everything that's associated with supply. So,
And
in the City of Thunder Bay, the conservation program, I believe, started in the mid-1990s with a report to council. It was approved, and I think within a year the ideas were flowing. It gradually built over time, so to the point where we are today, where we have 6-liter flush toilets, dual flush toilets, waterless urinals, rain barrel promotions. I think there was 2 parts to that question. I can't remember the other part.
reach the cruise speed in population appropriation, but I think it's all wrapped into it. Yeah. And Lou, any comments?
We started, again, looking at our water efficiency plan in 2002. We got it through council in early 2004, so we've been implementing since that time. The plan's target is 2011, but we suspect that we will revisit the plan and set new goals and targets that will stretch out even further. So that's something that we see as continuous. It really shouldn't end. You will complete some of the big savings in the front half of that decade, but you should continue to work on certain initiatives in future.
I think everyone in the room, and most certainly infrastructure managers, have heard of the infrastructure crisis by now, whereas most of our water infrastructure is reaching the end of its useful life for the first time. Those pipes are in poor condition. Many are thought to be leaking significant amounts of water that we have to treat and convey ultimately to go to waste. In your collective experience, one of the things that we're struggling with as an industry is developing best practices for infrastructure rehabilitation and replacement, including the goal of reducing unaccounted for water. In each of your municipalities, have you been able to achieve or arrive at what is a best practice for your municipality?
One of the significant things about unaccounted for water, I guess, right now is that the Ontario Municipal Benchmarking Initiative has an expert water wastewater panel Thunder Bay on the panel, and one of the business questions this year is water loss management. I think the important thing to understand about water loss management is that there's kind of two sides to that. One is actual leakage in your system, and the other is unaccounted for water. So the unaccounted for water may be water that you can account for but just haven't as of yet. So for example, Thunder Bay is 99% metered. Actually, it's 99.9%. But so we have a good handle on how much water we produce, how much water we bill out. What we don't have a handle on right now is how much water we utilize, for example, flushing for water quality, training for the fire departments, construction jobs during the summer, cleaning our streets, those types of things. And the focus of the expert panel right now is to narrow down the percentage of loss or unaccounted for water that you have and find out exactly what you have that you can't account for. And then that can be attributed to, for example, in Thunder Bay we have heavy frost conditions during the winter, so we have water mains that break due to frost conditions. Some municipalities have very aggressive soil, so they'll have corrosion holes in their piping system. That type of thing is probably a much less percentage than the total unaccounted for water. But there's two parts to it. One is the actual leakage, and the other part is just a matter of seeing where you're using that water.
Further to Mr. McWhirter's response too, one of the things that's occurring in a lot of municipalities today is asset management. About 2 years ago, Mayor Peterson led us through a strategic planning exercise, of which one of the things that was a deliverable over a short period of time was a comprehensive asset management plan for all of the assets within our corporate jurisdiction. We did put that together. We had help from a number of other communities, and we had help from other levels of government, but it clearly indicated to us when it came time to actually put pen to paper is to get a really good idea to the condition of our assets. That included the distribution system, the plants, and try to develop a plan from some condition surveys and indexes, how much money we would require every year in perpetuity to maintain the existing system. Some of them were monies we had to put aside to deal with the hot spots or areas of concern. Some of them were just the regular maintenance and life expectancy intervals. We have done that, and we can clearly see that there's a bit of time tuning, but at the end of the day, what we'll expect to have is minimal water loss just because of the condition of the asset, which will help us with our distribution system and our water treatment plant costs.
In Chicago, we are going through an initiative right now for capturing all of our assets, the distribution assets in the GIS system, and that will allow us to better forecast what capital needs are going to be for the future. And so when we go through this exercise, and we know we have the age of all of our pipes and the number of leaks on each of those pipes, and all that information is captured, you can prioritize your system and understand when the life cycle of that main is expiring and plan appropriately for that. So that's how we're addressing and put the value of the rate structure into that. That's how we're really addressing our management system.
Sure. With respect to the City of Toronto, to link the issue to the infrastructure, what we found, and I agree with Darrell, condition is important. It's not just age. Some of our good pipe are still our oldest pipes. They're thicker walled cast iron. They're in sandy soils. We're not seeing the same frequency of breaks as we have in some of our newer pipes that are only 50 or 60 years old in our suburbs. They're in more acidic soils. They're made out of a different material, a ductile iron, and they're corroding faster. And we have more breaks, in fact, in our newer suburban areas than we have in our downtown. So condition is very important. So marrying age and condition surveys helps you develop a better asset management plan and you can spend your money more wisely. So you're dealing with those hotspots. So we're doing all the same things as the other cities, but I wanted to stress that it's not just age, it's also your condition.
All right, we are going to take a break in just a minute. I'm Mayor Becker, filling in for Mayor Hartwell, who, as we know, has some unfortunate issues to deal with here in Grand Rapids. But first, I'd like to thank the panel for their flexibility, and if we find out who that... As soon as I find out who the clown was that spilt the water into the laptop that wiped out your presentations, I'll deal with them, guys. And see, that's one of the arguments for bottled water, because if those had been bottled water up there, I wouldn't have spilt them into the laptop. But nonetheless, one of the things I'd like everyone to do when you take the break, we have about a half-hour break, is stop out and visit the vendors out front. They've been very supportive of the conference. They're here. There's things you can learn from them, and certainly they'd love for you to stop by, see if the products and services they have would help your community. In addition, I don't know if you've noticed the nice looking shirts. I don't know if we have one that can model. Mary Lou, you want to step out here? We're going to have you model for us. But these shirts are made out of bamboo, and as they have all sorts of different versions of them, from t-shirts to polos to button-ups and that sort of thing. And they're made out of 100% bamboo. I think I'm correct with that. They're designed and manufactured clothing items. And it's a Clothing Matters. The name of it's Clothing Matters. It's a local source for sustainably designed and manufactured clothing items. So they're right outside the door. I know that because I stopped and looked at that, and they'll be here. They can kind of give you their rundown. And so with that, we will take a break. There's refreshments outside, and if we could get you back in here about 3:30 to get the next session going, we'd appreciate it. And so with that, thank you very much.